So we are back at the garage because the GoPro died, as GoPros always fucking die. But that actually isn't a bad thing, because when the GoPro died, we then swapped our bikes on the way back from Leamington. So Manny got some more saddle time in my RR and mine in his KTM 790, and that leads us to the last two bikes that we've obviously ridden this year. So we were with you talking about the RR. How do you feel riding that then?
Jumping on it, the first thing we said about the old rear sets.
Yeah. So this bike, compared to the first RR we took out from BMW, was the M package, whereas mine is not an M package, it's just a sport. So this is missing the CNC machine milled bits, about a couple of grand's worth of extras. But I didn't care about any of that because they were all just shiny bits that didn't matter. But what we found, or what I've found since, is the rear sets, or rather lack thereof, has actually changed. You know, I don't feel as confident as I did on that M Sport version.
Yeah,
and
so
I think that's more, the rear sets just push you forward a little bit more into a more natural, comfortable position, I think.
Yeah, I think I don't recollect having the problem with the foot pegs every time I put lifted my legs up.
Yeah.
So we were legs off the ground and getting caught on the inside of your legs by
your pegs just
by your pegs
flicking up and then coming back down.
Bizarre. I mean, that wasn't a thing. I don't think that was a thing on the M Sport version.
You said a good point as well. You were saying about the M Sport seat being thinner.
Yeah.
So obviously that took just a couple of mil off with your, because I was saying on this that, you know, I have to tiptoe a lot more than I did on that M.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the suspension was lowered under preload or anything, you know, but
Liam's a tall bloke, so even if he did set those rear sets, you'd imagine that it would still be a bit too low. I suppose it'd be too low.
Yeah.
Because he's a tall bloke. But anyway, by the way, riding it back, the seat was uncomfortable, because that was one of your main prerequisites, was the seat was too uncomfortable on the M Sport.
Well, the M was,
and it was like what, $2 and a bit grand more expensive.
Yeah. The only difference I think on this to that M we took out was the rear sets, the position.
Yeah.
I think the lightness wouldn't have made any difference.
No, not at all. I mean, as far as power and manoeuvrability and rideability, with the exception of the actual riding position for me, I would go as far to say that anybody that's sensible enough could just jump on that bike, and it's a 200 brake horsepower plus bike, and just ride it.
Yeah. It's why I love it. It's why I've got it, but it's also the thing that scares me the most as now being the owner of this bike.
Yeah.
Is how easy it is to go faster on it. You know, how it feels like.
Oh, the speed. I mean, fucking hell, mate. So I've jumped off mine. I've got my heated grips on there. The grips are like tiny in comparison. And just the slightest bit of throttle input in wet mode, which is what I had it on originally, and you're doing illegal speeds. Like, it's insane. You lose your license like that.
Yeah.
And the bike doesn't seem like it's stressed out. Bear in mind, yours is still limited.
Yeah.
Now, that's one thing. Both bikes that we've ridden on the S1000RR have both been factory limited in revs.
Yeah.
So neither of us have hit anything near the second cam.
We can't go above 9,000 RPM.
So they're limiting the brake horsepower because you're not going into the second cam, and they're limiting the rev. So you're constantly conscious that you're not over revving it.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed earlier on today, you were saying that if you do hit the rev limiter, it violently.
Yeah. Literally, your bollocks are in that tank at the front. It's like the brakes are being activated. You know, it's. So
you're shitting yourself.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what's just happened?
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
And then a second later, you realise, I've hit the limiter.
So I think that's going to open up a whole other dimension. I think subconsciously, when you know that you've got fundamentally a £50,000 car's worth of electronics to keep you on the road. Yeah. So your ABS, your traction control, your different ride modes, the brakes are fucking insane. Yeah. That one thing we must mention on that is that if you even think about braking, it's braking.
Yeah, the brakes are. When I first tried it on the lone bike, I hated it. But after 20 minutes of just not being so aggressive, them, and you've got to be so gentle now. I've got used to the braking on this. And the only thing I will say though is on the brakes on this, and you agree with me, is the rear brake. The positioning of it is shit.
You have to move your foot.
Yeah,
you physically have to tuck.
You have to work it to do the rear brake, and the rear brake on this, I've locked up the rear no end of times. It's nothing scary, you're going into a corner and you just feel it skip out. And the bike, to be fair, it doesn't light up or say it's doing anything to control.
Does it lock in the rear?
Yeah, well, it must do because the back skips out. It's because I'm on.
Like on mine, if I fully apply the rear brake, which again today I was just testing it out just to see the limits of the bike and stuff. You feel the ABS kicking.
Yeah, no, on this. Not so much, but then I suppose it's letting you have a little bit. If it went a bit too far, it probably would have intervened.
You feel it kicking back at you, and it just locks.
Yeah,
and then the back comes out.
No, I just feel the back coming out. You don't even feel it locking.
That should be a thing, mate.
You don't feel it locking, but it's because I think the rear brake. You just haven't got much travel, have you?
You haven't got much travel, and
10%,
your foot,
60%, 100%.
Yeah, your foot's at a position where it's difficult to be able to modulate it correctly.
Yeah. I
mean, again,
and the rear sets again put your foot. In the right position.
Being on that one on the demo bike, and I do tend to use the rear brake a lot more than I think you're meant to.
I did as well on my triple, and now on this, hardly use my rear brake at all now.
So, knowing that I would have in the test ride that we had used the rear brake, I didn't notice having to manipulate my foot into a gap, or to pull my foot in any way to be able to apply the rear brake. So, again,
rear sets are playing up more and more.
I think what we need to do is just go down to BMW and sit on that M1,
just take another M out.
Or just literally sit on it and go, right, is this the same or not? Because there's something fundamentally different.
Comfort-wise, I think comfort and confidence in your natural body position, as in just jumping on it and where the bike puts you.
Yeah.
I think the rear sets made a massive difference.
That's what makes it a little bit scarier. So having got on this one as opposed to the other one, that makes it a little bit scary, especially for me, than it did when I jumped on the other one. Now, the actual rideability, the engine, the throttle response, the modes, going through the modes, all that, the cruise control even. You say whack the cruise control on, and I'm thinking, I don't know how to do this. I've got to fanny around with buttons and stuff. I'm looking at the screen.
Yeah.
And you're on a 200 brake horsepower bike. Now, if I was on the Aprilia doing that same thing, there's no chance. Forget it.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, I'd have to ride it for 3 months before I got the. The whole thing's vibrating, and every time you touch the throttle.
Like I say, this gives you the confidence, and that's what scares me, though, because at the end of the day, that's a fucking weapon.
Yeah.
That is, we were saying about it today. Is it a hyper bike? Is it a super bike?
Yeah.
It's a proper machine.
Yes.
Right. And you see these videos all the time where people get themselves Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
And they want to show off.
Yeah.
And they do a little burnout.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the car just spins off and goes off into a tree because. When you have a proper performance, and we've driven proper performance cars, so we know what we're talking about here. If I'm in a Fiesta or an old Cosy or whatever, you just drop the clutch, you floor it, the back's coming out, and it's fun.
Yeah.
You do it in something more modern that's got technology. It lets you do it, and then all of a sudden the technology creeps in to give you the grip, and that's what sends these people flying off the road.
Yeah.
And that's what scares the shit out of me on this, because you come out of a corner, you're leaning over, and you just, instead of doing that, you do that, because, you're used to it. That extra horsepower that's going through the back, lighting that back wheel up, that's what I'm worried about, is the twisting, On a straight line warrior, as long as you've got your weight over the front, you can go. But as soon as you start tipping and moving, that's where, I'm always got it in my mind, how much are the electronics saving me from the bike trying to kill me?
Absolutely. I think the same thing with that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think it's probably more accessible. That might be just a slightly you thing. Because
I'm still got to get used to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, massively got to get used to it.
How long was I on the way back from Leamington? I was on the bike for what? Maybe 45 minutes? Half an hour, 45 minutes?
And to be fair, we're now entering the autumn where, it's been raining the night before, the roads are not fully dry. These are the S21s, which are meant to be all right in the wet, but they're obviously not, Road Pilot 5s, so they're not full, and I still can't get rid of this fucking line on the front wheel.
Amateur hour.
I mean?
But yeah, I mean, what I was going to say, throttle inputs. I mean, I think I was in wet mode. I might have gone into road at one point. Probably did. But it's a linear, progressive power delivery. It's not snatchy, going to throw a wheelie on you and turn, spin the bike on its head.
Yeah.
Losing traction on the rear tyre. I mean, obviously, I didn't experience that, and I think once that's happened once. Then you're in a position where you constantly, especially when you're cornering and you're giving it the beans. But when you see these boys, on the old YouTube, in the reviews you see in the bike magazines and stuff like that, absolutely hooning around tracks. Obviously, it's not more capable than we take it for. And I think you do learn to understand the technology. I'm getting more and more confident, touch wood, on the KTM, and more, I wouldn't say more reliant on, but I trust the electronics a lot more. The longer you do. I mean, I've done nearly 3,000 miles.
That's why I said it on a video I did a while ago as well. That is the thing. I mean, I love my Porsches, and I've had a lot of Porsches.
Yeah.
And they give you the confidence until just one day they just spit you out for no fucking rhyme or reason. You're going along. You've taken that corner. You've taken 100 times. But that day, it's just spasmed out on you, and that's the kind of confidence that this gives me. I don't know if it's not enough time with it, and also we were saying today, one of the guys in our group was on his Daytona, and I was looking at the size difference of this bike compared to his bike, because I look at this bike and I think it's a very small, narrow, slender bike, but then when you pull it next to other bikes, it's like when we took out the triples and the speed. It didn't feel much bigger than the Street, but when you put them next to each other, you were like, oh, actually, that's a much bigger bike, and this is bigger, it's heavier, compared to the 600 sports bikes. And you don't really, when you're riding it, you certainly don't feel that until, you park next to one, and then you're like, oh, actually, give myself a little bit more respect here. This is more, more of a heavier machine to get around.
Well, it's a litre bike as well.
And you forget that all the time with this, because it's just so because it's not trying to kill you, because you're going through the villages. I mean, you're moaning at me going, what are you doing at 30? Because I go into a village, I just set the cruise control at 30. I'm resting my hand on the tank to, just because obviously hand over, just getting a bit of a rest. And it's just so easy, isn't it?
As far as bikes at the moment that are, I mean, lest we forget, a Ducati Panigale is 24 grand?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is 17 grand. You're looking at, it was between 20 to 22 for, depending what you have on the M spec.
The M?
Yeah.
The S1000, S1000M?
No. Well,
S1000
they're calling it, well, it's an M package, isn't it? Because they're following the cars now, isn't it? So they're calling it an M Sport.
It's like the M Sport equivalent. £30,000.
Yeah.
And then that's got extras on top of it.
Oh, you're on about just the normal M?
No, the M.
The full M, that's just an M.
The one they released like recently, so it's like the HP4 or whatever.
Well, the amount of stickers on it, you've got to call it the MMMMM.
Yeah, so that M&M is 30 grand.
That's like Honda with the R's, isn't it? What was they had the RRR.
Yeah.
R.
CBR, 1000 RRR.
Yeah, BMW are following suit, but with an MMMM. Or they just want you to go,
Well, they'll go, I mean, but for 30 grand, I don't think you'd be going,
No.
So you put up next to one.
Yeah.
It's got a bit more brake horsepower, I'm sure. I'm sure there's an uplift on that. I mean, we should be more.
Well, it's probably just
more knowledgeable about it. But what I'm saying is, your competition is your Panigale, which is 25, 30.
Panigale V4 went past me the other day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I pulled out and started filtering with him to follow him.
Yeah.
Just because that bike is just so fucking sexy.
It's sexy.
I mean, that for me is, I thought when the PCP's up on this, will I go to maybe a V2?
V2.
Just because it's so good looking.
But
then, of course, they brought out the 1000R singular, and that, I think, is...
Yeah, hold on, because hold on. So you go out and buy a V2 because the equivalent bike is a V4.
Yeah.
But you go out and buy a V2 because the price of the V2 is probably about the same as the...
For me, I don't use the horsepower either.
You don't use horsepower, that's fair enough. But it's still the price.
Yeah.
£30,000. You're not spending £30,000 on a bike.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The Aprilia's 24, I think. Between 22 and 24.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain.
I get the Aprilia anyway, but yeah.
The Honda is...
Honda's nice, yeah.
I mean, they weren't crazy, man. That CB 1000 or 1100 that was on.
Yeah, rah.
It wasn't an RRR. I think it might have just been an R. I think it was CB 1100R, the Neo Sports Neo thing.
Yeah.
I wanted like
14,
that one.
That's the CB.
14, 15 grand for that thing. So whatever Honda, I mean, I don't even know what Honda. Suzuki GSX-R, okay, you can get one of those pretty cheap. But that's not tech-wise and whatnot.
Yeah.
Your chasms away from one another. So why would you have anything else?
Yeah.
Apart from, okay, you like the look of a Ducati, but then you're on a V2. What are you getting more from your Panigale or from your Aprilia?
Yeah. No, I know where you're coming from.
In fact, we know, like statistically, you're getting less brake horsepower, less toys.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to talk about the toys? Have we got enough time in the world to talk about the toys on this bike?
It's got every toy.
No, but every toy is this. I mean, what did you say to me today? Oh, the cruise control.
I found out a new tip on the cruise control. If you've got one of these, because I had a bugbear with the cruise control. You go along, you press to enable cruise control. Mm-hmm. It's enabled. You press to go up, you pull to go down, and it's great because you can just ride and keep your hand off the accelerator. Problem is, to disable the cruise control, you've got to either pull in the clutch or tap the brake. So I thought. And by doing that, it just gives you that big jerk.
Yeah, it happens to me.
It's not nice. Yeah, you're a bit like, I've got to try and rev match before I touch the brake or whatever. But what I didn't know, you just basically pull your throttle forward a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it disables it.
I reckon if you could reach the back brake, you could probably tap the back brake as well.
I've done that as well, and that's still it just sets it off.
Does it?
Does it a bit too much. Whereas that you just push your accelerator forward, so roll off, push it forward,
and it doesn't do the lurch.
No, just switches it off, and you're like, oh, that's lovely. I like that. So tech. Although it's got it all, self-cancelling indicators work beautifully. There's no issue with that.
I mean, it's a life-saving.
The cruise control works beautifully.
Yeah.
The heated grips work beautifully, but the actual media side, I think that
too much of a bike.
Do you need it?
On a bike.
Do you need it? But the rider aids, the anti-wheelie, the anti-slip, the ABS, the cornering, all of that stuff. It's brilliant. It's sublime. It's a whole other level where it's not,
blipper, upshifter.
Yeah, lovely.
There is no other bike. I mean, I've been on most of them. There is no other bike that has the smoothness and it doesn't matter. The one thing I did notice on this, without labouring the point too much, how good it is, because I'm jealous. It doesn't matter what gear you're in.
No.
You could be cruising at 30 through a village in fifth, and just roll on, and it's fundamentally, well, it's not, but for someone that just got on the bike, it's not going to stall. What did you say to me the other day?
Oh, I couldn't stall it. Yeah. It's got some weird. I've got to properly check this out, but it wouldn't let me stall the thing. Basically, first gear took me down to 8 miles an hour. I stood on the back brake, and it wouldn't. It was like fighting at 7 miles an hour, and it's fighting me forward. So then I thought, well, fuck you then. I'll put it on the front brake. I put it on the front brake, and then it coughed. And I think I moved back and whiskied it, because then it went, whoa, I quickly pulled in the clutch and shit myself, and then didn't do it again. So I got to do it to see. But basically, it wouldn't let me stall it. It was kind of like a bull, like I'll buck you off me before you fucking stall me, sort of thing.
It's crazy.
I mean, you can stall it if you're in first gear.
Yeah.
And you pull out a bit too quick and you haven't given it enough revs, it will stall.
Okay.
But once you've pulled out the clutch and it's going, it will not stall. And I tried it in second gear as well.
And
the second gear takes you up to 12 miles an hour.
12 miles an hour. Yeah. 12 miles an hour, which is, I mean, I have heard that as a thing. You can literally leave it in first and throttle off and just it'll pull you through town.
Yeah. I mean, this RR is just, I think, the most pinnacle bike out there at the moment. It's the most technical. It's the most got the most technology, and but that's what makes it easier to ride for a novice. You know, like we can jump on it and ride it, and you know, not be you know, track veterans. You know, and that is. But if you are a track veteran, then you can get the most out of that bike. Whereas if we jump on, you know, the Aprilias and the Ducatis, they're a lot more hard work. You know, you're on them. Whereas today, you know,
I've
we've
been on the
out,
Aprilia for 5 minutes, and I was shattered.
I was on that today in the saddle for 4 hours, weren't it? And you know, I'm not going to say I'm not tired, and you don't feel it a bit in your back.
Yeah, but we all do, even on that. You know, naked. You know.
Yeah. But you know that you can do it. Is the main thing. You can do it. Whereas you know, if you take an older superbike, you're just gonna. So the thing with this beautiful bike. It's got everything to keep you safe. However, you've got to remember to give it the respect. That's the thing. You jump on the other super bikes, they beat you into respecting them because they want to kill you.
Well,
you
the sound, the vibration, everything just feels like it's like.
Everything on that bike is saying I am immense and you will respect me. You know, whereas you jump on this and it's like, oh, you know, cruise control and you know I can just tootle around and you know, oh, no hands dear, you know, it's not an issue. But you know, you put it in race pro modes and whatever, and it is everything, you know, and that's the thing. You just got to remind yourself to respect it. And it's fucking beautiful. So basically, never take one out for a test ride because
you don't buy one.
You like me. I mean, I don't.
I only bought one. I literally took. If I get the insurance, I would have bought one with you that day.
Yeah.
And I've been on it for 3 minutes. No, for 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you literally get on it and go. It doesn't want to kill me. I want to buy it.
Yeah. That's it. The fear soon becomes excitement.
Yeah.
And then the excitement soon becomes. Actually, this is financially viable.
Yeah.
You know, especially when we use the cars. You and I have been through some cars, and we know that it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
You're basically buying a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a Bugatti. I mean, what somebody likened it the other day. So your Ducati's like your Ferrari, your Aprilia is like your Lamborghini, and then your BMW is like your Bugatti.
Yeah.
You're literally driving, and like the difference in it should be the other way around. Yeah. Why BMW aren't charging 35 grand for the bike, and then the Ducatis are cheaper because of the tech and all the bits we've spoken about. Yeah. So it's like a win-win-win-win-win. The only thing is the insurance is insane. Well, for a new rider.
No. I mean now for me, 5 years no claims.
Yeah.
3 years on a big boy license because I had 2 years. Well, I've got 5 years because I had 2 years on a CBT license beforehand. So I've got 5 years no claims. 3 years big boy license, £350 a year insurance.
I haven't got those things, and it was £9,000.
9,000.
Yeah, that was the only quote that came up. Yeah, £9,000.
nine grand's a bit much.
This came out for some reason the cheapest.
Yeah.
So not only is it the cheapest bike, I mean that might be partly to do with it, the fact that it was one of the cheapest bikes, but also the cheapest on insurance. And it's 105-ish brake horsepower. It's got 80 foot-pounds of torque, and it's 160 kilos. Yeah. So.
I said to you, weren't it? We went out and I would go out in the wet and I just enjoy riding in the wet. This
on the
street triple or on any bike really, but on this I go out in the wet and I am like, oh, it's wet. If this road was dry, I'd be able to take this corner a bit better.
Summer's would be a fun time.
Yeah. I'll be so much happier if the road was dry.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, well, hold on, I'll be happier because I'll be riding faster. You know, and so everything about it is just encouraging you to push on.
You were saying that earlier on, and I was saying, well, no, but hold on a minute. Like, it's not necessarily about riding faster, but I think you want to be able to lean. You want to be. I mean, I'm finding in the more miles that I'm doing on mine, it's not necessarily the speed; it's the confidence and you know, getting in a mid corner.
Yeah.
Sort of getting your knee down, getting a lean on. It's actually more exciting, you know. I used to hate where I live. There's like a weavy, windy road that takes you into the estate. Yeah. And it's a traffic calming measure. And in the car, I hate it. It's ridiculous. But on the bike, I'm actually finding it fun.
Yeah, because
you know you get in left and right. Yeah.
But it's this. It's like I love straight line warrioring. Right, so straight line warrior, for those that don't know, is basically, you know, the road in front of you is empty. You got a quick shifter, whap, 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 all the way up through the gears, tuck yourself in, you know, pull yourself up. You know, you've gone from 0 to 100. You know,
can I just interrupt there? Sorry, interrupt there. So on this bike, being a straight line warrior, going bop 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 bop, you're at 200 miles an hour.
That's what I'm getting at.
Like bop. you're at 100.
Yeah.
I think in first, what can you get to in first? 60,
well,
50,
man,
60?
It's limited, isn't it? So,
Okay,
but no, I think first we'll go up to like 90 plus. You know, before you're bouncing off the limiter.
It's
but
ridiculous.
if you could keep it down, that is.
If you can get the front end down, anti-wheelie, everything
and
works
you've got
out.
Big enough cojones.
So that you can forget that. You can forget all about that unless you're going to short shift your whole way up the rev. And even then, if you're in 6 and you've got the throttle pinned, it will take you to 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was getting at. Is that on the Triumph, I would go in straight line warrior, all the lights go up and that have you.
Yeah.
I lift up, I look down, I see 90 miles an hour, right, on a private racetrack.
Of course.
And you look down, it's 90 miles an hour, and you feel, oh yeah, that's 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Did the same thing on this, bearing in mind, still not used to it, first time, look down and there's, north of 110. And I thought it was 70. I thought I was limiting. I thought, no, I'm not going to go up to the 90. I'll take it easy.
You get 9s in this without even thinking about it. I wasn't even. He's behind me on my bike, so I don't want to wreck his bike in front of him. It's not been serviced for the first service yet.
Yeah.
And I've twisted the throttle, not that much, and I looked down and there was a 9 in it. And
but it's safe. I felt more safe and stable
100%.
at 110, than at 80 on the triple. Whether that's because it's a super sport versus a naked, but you felt like. Now I'm a bit more used to it, and I know that speed is there, and you're sort of looking ahead and looking down at the dash, and you're seeing, 120 on a private track in Mexico, and you're like, I could easily keep this going
because you're electronically limited to 8,000 RPM at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're short shifting the whole way up.
Yeah.
So you're not even touching, which is a beautiful thing. The thing that we're finding
that's what I'm saying. That's the scary thing. Is what happens when you get used to it, and you can take it up to.
It's about the person.
grand.
I personally think it's about the person because, whereas
I'm Captain Sensible.
I know
I'm the
you
most
are.
sensible of the lot,
and I think you will be. I think you'll continue.
And I'm like.
Yeah, but that's boys and their toys. I think eventually, with everything, and like with your car's capable of going 170 miles an hour, but you don't do it.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, you've got this for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? The rest of us, mere mortals that haven't got the S1000RR, are always thinking about the next bike. Always. Yeah. John, he's on his 3rd or 4th, he's constantly, everybody's constantly thinking, I'll get one of those, I'll get a track bike to go alongside it, blah, blah. This just ticks all those boxes.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
You were talking about it earlier on.
The only thing this doesn't is the comfort side. In comparison to a stand-up bike. For me, the negatives of this bike, and I'll do a proper review and cover this later on owning it for 6 months and what have you, but for me, like, I'm going to enjoy my 3 years and I'm going to look back on them with fond memories. But in 3 years' time...
You don't know this. You might have the next one.
In 3 years' time...
You might have a 300 brake horsepower.
In 3 years' time, I'm going to want the more sedan. This...
Yeah, but hold on. Let me interrupt, right? Because you've just said something about... So, that's a more upright bike.
Yeah.
Mine, the KTM 790 is more upright. When you get to 80, 90, it feels like it's going to blow you off the top of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's got 100 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
The S1000R, which is probably, that's the bike I want to have next, so I do like the upright seating position.
Yeah.
But you cannot get away from the fact that you want to be blown off the bike.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter too much because I don't want to be doing 120 in a straight line. I would rather, I was over the moon with my Triumph. There's nothing that needed me to move away from my Triumph. This just felt like such a much better bike, and I could get it for the money. And it's like I still can't believe I've got one. I had to have it. And that's why I've got it. But it makes me a rider. Maybe I don't want to be. Or it's pushing me down a route where I'm like, I'm having to resist so much.
Right, okay.
Whereas I think the single R brings you back, even though that's a litre. I mean, that's the thing as well. Like, if you take my street triple, I could ride it to 60, 70% of its capability at best, right? This, I'm never going to get to that.
No.
Unless I start...
No,
really investing in all of the track day courses, living on a track for a year, I'm not going to come close to bringing this anywhere near, You know, it's like when we swapped. I jumped on yours, you jumped on mine, and I'm back on yours, and I'm like, so you're just going into the corners, you're just throwing it in, and whereas this, you're going into the corners, and you're like, back in, don't skip out, skip out, and that's what I mean. Like, this is brilliant, and I absolutely love it, and it brings me so much joy, and I'm not disappointed with my choice at all. But it's so refreshing to just jump off onto a smaller bike and be like, I'm the fucking Don. You know what I mean? You're just like, because you just got all the power. And it's what I said when I got off mine on yours, and it was like, this is an amazing bike. I'm going to talk about this in a second. But I said, this in comparison, this is just
a toy.
It was a toy. It was, and it's not. It's a very capable
It is
machine.
a bit, but
it's brilliant. But in comparison, weight-wise, speed-wise, delivery-wise, and this has all the toys. But this was just like, it's like jumping out of your Porsche and getting into an old, Austin Metro. You're like, corners, just go around them. Whereas in the Porsche, in the BMW, you're like, I've got to think about what I'm doing because this can end badly.
Well, I would probably say it's more like. So I don't know if you've ever been in. Have you ever driven a McLaren, like a 675 or a MP4, like that sort of?
Have a Bell stuff.
Okay, this guy. All right. Anyway, right. So I mean, the first time I got in a McLaren, it was a MP4, MP12-4. Anyway, it's like the first super McLaren thing, and that was on a track, and it is a completely different car to anything you've experienced. 600 brake horsepower. You'd think, 600 brake horsepower. Actually, in that car, it was insanity, and I mean insanity. I've driven in some fast cars. Then you jump into your own car. So at the time, I think maybe I had what did I have? I can't remember. Maybe an RS something, TTRS, or it might have been the TTRS at the time. And it was like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
This
is like a joke.
Because you've been so used to the litre, and then you come back to your 790. It makes all the difference.
However, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I got off of yours.
Yeah.
And it was fun. I loved it. Back onto mine, and the seat, rather than feeling like that big, felt that big.
Yeah.
The bars felt like they were up here.
Yeah.
The view was just like, and the leanability, the throwability
of it,
the front, everything just felt like actually I can use this. And I rode, I think after having been on yours and jumped onto that one, I rode more confidently, faster, and I felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
It was actually like a little bit of a relief.
Yeah.
Jumping off of yours onto that, which is insane because I jump onto that every time I jump out on the bike, and I think, it's a bit of a toy.
Yeah.
But we'll go on to that. We'll go on to the ins and outs of that. But if I were to have the choice, I think it would have to be a bit of a mix of both, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this bike, you can use it every day. It can be a commuter.
Yeah.
But
But isn't that where what I was going to say was, isn't that where the R comes in? At that point,
that's still a litre. It's
a litre bike, but you can turn all the modes down. I mean,
yeah.
This thing in track
You're
mode,
probably right.
It will free off the back of it.
We've got to go out on one.
Yeah.
But I would, really, if you could have this as a second bike, that would be the dream.
Yeah,
you're living the dream then, and
yeah.
just keep that for being the weapon, rather than sedating it. Because that's the problem. When you sedate it and you get used to using it on a day-to-day, that's why when you do go on, it can catch you out. Because then you've taken it for granted is more, the issue that they've done with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that moves us then on to yours, the 790. And for me, this was, so I had, you've seen in the video, we've gone through all the bikes, and I had my Street Triple. And my Street Triple, even with the RR sitting here, I still think is the ultimate do-all everything bike.
Put a blipper on it.
Yeah. Well, new ones have it, right? So that is for me, if you said I want a bike to do absolutely everything, that for me is still the bike. 1000R pending.
Now, it's a strange one. Hold on. It's a strange one because would I have the old one or the new one? I think I'd have the old one.
What, Street Triple? Yeah.
I don't know why.
See, I'd definitely have the new one. It got perfected on every version.
So I just don't understand it. I don't see your Street Triple seemed to, because it's completely analog to some extent. It's a proper machine.
Maybe that's why Triumph actually went back, because on the Street Triple, the whole lineup at one point when LCDs came out, the whole lineup had LCDs, and then a year or 2 years later, only the real top end model had the LCD, and everything else.
That's what I'm riding. Their graphic user interface, whatever you want to call it, is crap.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like the older one. The new one is shit, I think. But yeah, I know what you mean.
So, would I have, out of all the bikes I could have had, I think the Street Triple was probably the one, but it was nearly double the price of that bike. Not right.
But it's not twice the bike.
No, nowhere near.
No, I mean this
thing.
Yeah.
If you're a bit of a tech enthusiast, which you and I are, and you want the toys, and you want the gizmos, and you want the gadgets, nothing comes close.
Yeah, it's got it all.
So you got what? Upshifter, blipper.
Yep. It's got ABS, anti-wheelie,
ABS,
lean angle
sensor. Lean angle ABS.
Yep.
You've got all the ride modes.
Yep.
So you've got your track mode, anti-wheelie.
That's one thing. Ride modes on this, I find a little bit. Well, it's a hooligan bike for a reason. No,
that I will mess around with the modes, and there is a difference between every mode, and the more confident you get throughout the day, you switch up a mode, switch it up. So by the end of today, we're on track mode. I started today when I left the house in wet mode.
Yeah,
and there is a sort of like the throttle response,
until we hit the Newport Pagnell Road, and I was in dynamic on that. You were in track on yours. And the suspension.
That was 4 hours later, and all of a sudden, but my suspension is non-adjustable.
Wanted to throw us off.
The downsides to that are, so obviously the 890R is the balls out, got all the toys, every toy. I'm saying that right. So without boring everybody to death, the 890R comes with.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri's interested in it.
The 890R comes with everything. That the 790's got, but you have to pay for the track mode.
Right.
You have to pay for the blipper.
Yeah.
You have to pay for the not the anti-wheelie mode. So it's 10 and a half grand, 11 grand for the bike. That comes with Brembo's and Öhlins shocks, I believe.
Well, that's because everybody said this is a real rival for the Street Triple.
Yeah.
And so KTM then went, well, hold on, how can we get Street Triple money?
Yes.
And I think that's what
so
they
they're
did.
trying to. So you're talking about
to start adding it up.
4 or 5 grand more for that. Yeah. For that upgrade to that 890.
And
but then
I
you've got
think
to pay
that
for
was
additions.
A mistake for the 890.
Well, the 890 is smashing it, mate. I mean, if I need to get on one to see what the difference is. When I first got this one, I couldn't even visualise what the difference would be.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about 100 cc's, you're talking about 20 or 30 brake horsepower. I think maybe less than that, 15 brake horsepower more. But the things that let this bike down are the brakes, which are good and they do work. But I have thought about changing the master cylinder to a Brembo and changing the pads because there's the initial bite. There isn't anything. So jumping off yours onto that. It's not as confidence-inspiring when you go around corners, but that's something that all the reviews said anyway. And then suspension, it's non-adjustable suspension. Now, whether or not I would adjust the suspension is a different thing. But it does seem like one size fits all doesn't necessarily fit all. Yeah. It is good suspension, but in comparison to the Triumph's normal suspension, I think this is far... the Triumph suspension is far superior, put it that way.
The Triumph, the Street Triple is a much more refined machine overall compared to the KTM.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, but fun, performance, all of that.
I would say no way.
Seven grand, isn't it?
So they retail. I think they retail at 8.5 or 9.
Yeah.
But the deals that they've got go around about 7.5 brand new.
Yeah. So basically
on the road.
Would you spend $4 grand more on a Street Triple?
I didn't.
No, I know you didn't. I mean, personally, I would because of the Triumph, and I like the brand and everything else.
But you're going to lose in that Triumph. You're going to lose $4 grand off the bat.
Yeah. I mean, the Triumph is because I love Triumphs. British brands. It's polished. It's nice. I like the dealership and everything else. But realistically, you know, if you gave me this and I've got a street triple, would not be disappointed in the slightest. This is every bit of a bike.
But cheaper with more
cheaper, more toys
attached to it.
Yeah.
You look like a hooligan.
Yeah.
It wants to wheelie all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not this is going to lose some money, how cheap can a bike get? At what point can, you know, if you're buying it for 7.5?
Well, bikes never really drop below $4,000, do they?
You know, if you're going to lose 3.5 worst case scenario, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm not personally a fan of the looks of it.
Well, that's the same could be said for a street triple. You know,
just the headlights.
They're both
they need to sort those headlights out.
I see. I now like the new ones with the brows.
No,
I really like them.
They're just trying. They're literally polishing a turd at that point, aren't they?
I don't like this waspy.
No, neither do I.
But tell you what, fucking hell, don't let Manny ride behind you.
Oh no, I've changed it. I've fixed it.
Oh, have you fixed that?
Yeah. Well, okay, a little bit. So dealerships and support for KTM, absolute pony.
Whereas Triumph, I would say very good.
Well, yeah, I mean they didn't really sort you out though, did they?
Well, that's down to individuals. I mean, you know, that's always going to be down to the garage, but the customer service, you know, that's the individual mechanic, you know, who didn't spot something he should have perhaps spotted. But you know, the same could be said for any dealer with their mechanic. But the actual, you know, ease of like, need to have a service, run it in, what bike do you want for the day? You know, it's like, oh, I fancy going out on a Tiger or whatever. Yeah, I'll have one in for you for the day.
So I was looking into this the other day, and cars, you know how if you want to maintain your warranty, you can take it to anyone as long as they're using official parts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Bikes is not the same thing.
Right.
So we've got a mechanic that we've used for little bits and pieces here and there, Ian. And he was, well, I popped down to see him the other day just to have a quick look at my chain. And he was saying, I said, look, I'll get the next service, I'll bring it in for you to the next service because KTM were a bit crap. And he said, yeah, but the problem is your warranty.
Yeah. And
you can't take if you're in warranty, you can't take your bike to a non-approved repairer or mechanics.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know
so
that.
you can't take your BMW to Ian, you have to take it to BMW to maintain the warranty.
Right.
Why that's the case on a motorbike and it's not the case on cars, I mean, it seems like it's the same consumer thing goes in. Yeah. But I took the bike in, so what Don was talking about was my headlights were, I didn't know this because obviously I'm riding the bike, but my headlights were blinding oncoming traffic and bikes in front of me. The reason was that I had fitted the heated grips and had to take the front light which folds down. There's a screw up here which is an adjustment screw, and I thought I'd adjusted it back to the right position.
So you adjusted it up?
I adjusted it up, which is fine, but then I was riding with Chris said, Manny, you're blinding me. I adjusted it to a point where it was down, and then went out for another ride, and you were on that ride, and Chris was saying, you're blinding me still, and I said, well, I've adjusted it, it's correct. And what happened is there's two pins down here which I hadn't seated the headlight in. However, in between the first adjustment that I made and Chris seeing that the pins weren't in, the bike went into KTM because there was the upshifter kept dropping to neutral. So I took it to KTM, to the main dealer.
Having that problem with KTM as well, aren't they?
It's fine now, by the way. So the adjustment's been great. They redid the software and whatnot. So I took the bike into KTM and said, look, can you look at the shifter because it's dropping into neutral. John and I were coming out of a junction onto a main dual carriageway, and it was only, sorry, not a junction, it was like a slip road, like a little tiny slip road, maybe 15-foot slip road onto a main dual carriageway, because that was when his backpack exploded on his back and all his stuff came out. Yeah. So he pulled over, emergency stop, pulled back out, and there's a truck coming. I've given it full throttle, slipped from first to second, that was fine, into second to third, and all of a sudden I'm in neutral. And that was like panic. Because there was a lorry coming. So anyway, I rang KTM and said, look, this is not right, you've got to get it in. They took it in. I said, look at the headlight for me, because people are telling me I'm blinding them. Guy says to me, after he'd serviced it, gave me the key back, he said, look, it's fine. Headlight's fine, we checked it. Great. Then we went out, probably I think it was that evening, Chris goes, mate, the headlight's not even seated properly. So what was happening was, because it wasn't seated at the bottom of the two pins, the whole headlight's just doing this the whole time.
Oh, okay.
So, and Chris is... You know, bear in mind it was dark at the time. All he's done this, and he's noticed that it's come up.
Yeah.
So, can you trust these guys? You know.
That's always it, and you know, like we said, you know, the mechanic we use. If ever you're in Northampton, you want to use Ian at RPM, just don't go anywhere else. The man's genius.
He's got too much bike.
He's a bike whisperer.
I was nervous that this wasn't going to be the right bike for me. I went out on a test ride on it, liked it, didn't like it as much as a Triumph. But then when you look at the deals and the packages, it's just the Triumph is too expensive. I mean, the Triumph was working out more expensive than this.
Yeah.
And that was with, you know, a couple of grand in as a deposit and stuff. So their finance rates are too high, their residuals are too low, you know, it's like a lose.
Yeah.
So anyway, jumped on. Now having had this, I've done like, 3,000 miles, I think, nearly.
To now, yeah. I mean, you were at 2,500, I think, when we started this video. It's
probably,
taken forever to finish.
And I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I can't recommend them enough.
This is, for the money as well, this is like, you know, the do everything bike. It's so much fun. It's very, very, very capable. And yeah, you can get it stock and not have to do anything with it.
You say that. Heated grips, that you can't get that. Well, you can get all these parts from KTM. KTM charge a fortune for everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if anybody ever seen any photos of that bike, but if you look at it, I've stripped off. I've got like a box about this big, just full of bits that have come off this bike.
Yeah.
So it does come with a few little, you know, idiosyncrasies that need to be sorted out. The tail tidy is atrocious on them when it comes out. The mirrors are horrendous.
Oh, now covered the last two, and out of every bike then that we've ridden this year, these are the best of the pack, aren't they? And we're really lucky that they're ours.
100%.
You know,
I mean, if I hadn't have got that one, I would have bought your Triumph off you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if there was a third bike to sit here,
yeah,
it would have been the Street Triple.
Yeah.
For me, and I think you.
So, in order of preference, do you want to go down that list? Mind you, you haven't really...
The new Street Triple, in my head, I love the fact that a bike can do absolutely everything, you know. But this is just, it's the Lamborghini of bikes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not disappointed with it at all. It is, you know, it's just amazing.
So, BMW, I agree, top of the list, absolutely. Second in the list of all the ones we've ridden this year. Or
I've got the Street Triple there for me.
Street Triple.
Yeah.
I would say I'd agree. Your one though.
What, even over the Z900?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you would have put the Z900 there.
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
And then shortly behind then the Z900.
Then that.
And then this. But then I think you should stop there.
No. So hold on. BM. Triumph.
Yeah.
KTM.
Okay, you're putting that above the Z900 as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, because I mean the Z900 that was achievable. That, you know, $8.5 That was, you could have got a deal on that one, and you know that was
like
actually a bike that could have happened.
Any toys either, you know.
Didn't have any toys. Didn't have. Yes, I mean, you know, for what, and you know me, value for money guy.
Yeah.
That's what I'd see, and then
I'd stop there because everything else is just so far apart from what these are. I don't think they should be on the list. If you're going out and you're looking to buy a bike, you've got, you know, the high-end litre bike, and then you need to make your own mind up between, you know, what you feel about the Z900, the 790 or 890 Duke KTM, and the Triumph Street Triple, because I think really those three bikes...
Sorry, what did you say? The 790...
790 and the 890 KTM.
Yeah, but 10 and a bit grand is... I mean, yeah...
No. Again, it's in Triumph budget, and that's what I'm saying. That is then personal preference.
I believe...
Do I want to spend a little bit more money, which could be a bit wasted, could not be?
Yeah, but I believe that if... Because you got to remember that the KTM 890 has got the Brembo brakes, it's got the Olin shocks, it's got all that at 10 and a bit, whatever it is, grand. Right?
Yeah.
All right, it's the looks, whether or not you like the looks, and the build quality...
Siri loves talking to you, don't she?
The build quality of the Triumph is top notch, but after having ridden this and stripped off all the crap, actually, what have I got? I've got handlebars, I've got throttle, I've got all the switch gears, good, blah blah blah. So if you're comparing an 890 to a new street triple.
Yeah.
Street triple. I think the street triple's got no chance at that point.
See, I don't know. I just like street triple, and that's why I'm saying it's a personal thing. I think.
Get on both.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that mid range, then you definitely So
those are the only 3 bikes.
street triple, KTM, and
the 2 KTMs
and a
street
Z900.
triple, Z900.
Z900 curveball, mate. You need to get
Yeah.
out on that because I think you'll be surprised on that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about PCPs in another video because you know a lot about PCPs. I don't know anything about
We'll get
them.
into that,
But we'll talk about that in another video because that's a big subject. But just so we end the video, that's costing me £103 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's costing you
30.
£30 a month.
Yeah.
No reason not have a bike.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I think we've picked the best of the bunch. They're ours.
Not that we're biased in any way at all, mate.
Well, now we've got more mileage on it, and we'll have to do reviews on long-term reviews on them in a bit.
So, well, I've been on some other stuff as well. We need to do some more bike swapping with the guys in the group because you need to get on them as well. And we'll sit down and have a proper chat about them.
Although they'll be scared I'll drop it.
You just drop bikes.
I've got a bit of a reputation. Fucking 2020.
What were you saying earlier in the video that there was some sort of weird alternate universe or something that nobody was listening to?
No, that was just bikes. That's just a paradox.
That was the paradox. I think we should end it there, mate. I think we should end it there.
Yeah. Well, as always, guys, thank you for watching. And anything you need, like reviews on and that. We are growing the channel. We've got something coming up that we're not going to talk about here, but that will come along later. Thanks again for watching.